Welcome everybody to 12 quick random comic book story reviews, where I blindly pick a bunch of comic books off one of my shelves. I'll say a few sentences about them with very little spoilers, and then I'll give them a grade. So let's get started with this episode. Alright, let's start the new episode off with Deathstroke, the Professional. Christopher Priest is an incapable and frustratingly poor writer. His fractured timeline storytelling is confusing for no clear reason. It's far more complicated than it ever needs to be. Priest routinely jumps backwards in time without providing dates or clear context, making the narrative jarring, jumbled, and needlessly difficult to follow. Even with my background knowledge of Deathstroke, the book was still a chore to get through. So Priest, you're really going to start your new Deathstroke run with a confusing time travel storyline involving Clock King without any background info? Really? Now the final few issues, which focus on his daughter Rose in Gotham, aren't bad, and the premise itself has real potential. Unfortunately, in the hands of a more capable writer, that premise could have been great instead of just merely passable. F+. Alright, up next is Ultimate Spider-Man Married with Children. Jonathan Hickman is no doubt a top-tier writer, and his talent is evident here, but this entry ultimately lands just fine. The alterations he makes to Spider-Man's mythology, particularly with Harry Osborn, Gwen Stacy, and Ben Parker, are truly fun. They're engaging, they're packed with entertaining moments and clever twists. But the most intriguing concepts, Peter being married with kids and Jonah Jameson teaming with Ben Parker on a newspaper venture, doesn't get enough room to breathe. Instead, the story leans too much on the Kingpin conflict and standard superhero elements, which feel redundant and surprisingly dull. It seems too bland for Hickman. Now the result is a book that holds fantastic ideas that are often undercut by uninspired ones. C+. Up next is the one, the only Miracle Man. This 16-issue series by Alan Moore contains some of the greatest moments and some of the most frustrating in comic book history. The book is packed with outrageously imaginative ideas, but Moore undermines parts of this epic story with pages of pretentious, overloaded sentences that don't describe anything. The excessive monologues and the heavy space politics disrupt the flow of the story greatly. That said, several storylines are outstanding. The conflict with Kid Miracle is gripping. Mike Moran's relationship with his wife is beyond fascinating. The mystery surrounding Dr. Gargunza is compelling, and the introduction of the baby reshapes everything in a fascinating way. The journey from the opening issue to the conclusion is bold, it's unforgettable. Incredible events unfold throughout the series, but they're overshadowed by Moore's tendency to overwrite, especially in those later issues. B+. Okay, let's head to Animal Man: The Hunt. A spectacular ride. Oh man, I was captivated. It's hard to say anything other than this is a perfect horror story. The enjoyment comes from every angle. The grotesque, the unsettling artwork, the deliberate way the plot unfolds, and the confidence of its execution. The premise itself isn't wildly original, but it doesn't need to be, because it's executed flawlessly. As a huge fan of Grant Morrison's Animal Man, this felt spiritually connected to that run. It's Grant's Buddy Baker, yet pushed into a far darker, more horrifying territory. Writer Jeff Lemire and artist Travel Foreman, outstanding work, A. Alright, now it's time to go to Godzilla vs. Kong vs. Justice League. If you're looking for a safe, straightforward, formulaic comic book story, this one fits the bill. It offers a few minor thrills, some decent ideas, but unfortunately a lot of juvenile dialogue and moments. There may have been a time when I would have enjoyed this more, but this type of story doesn't hold my attention any longer. That said, plenty of readers will probably have a great time with it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't quite capture my attention. However, Godzilla is drawn awesome in this book. C-. Okay, let's go to Batman Noel. Like many Christmas stories, this is based off A Christmas Carol, and Lee Bermejo executes the concept exceptionally well. One of the book's greatest strengths is Bermejo's inspired choice for the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. Unbelievably creative, and it perfectly fits. His artwork may be the best of his career here, capturing a snow-covered Gotham with stunning atmosphere, and his depiction of Bob Cratchit is particularly striking. While the premise is brilliant and the book has a great ending, the flow of the narrative feels choppy at times, and although Jason Todd's role is compelling, its execution isn't quite as polished as it could have been. B. Okay, let's go to Ghost Rider: Blood and Vengeance. The biggest issue is how thin and rushed the plot feels. What should be a gritty supernatural street story instead plays out like a checklist of familiar Ghost Rider tropes. Gang war, mysterious villain, vague mystical stakes without any payoff. The stakes never feel meaningful, hence the awful climax. Character work is equally underwhelming. Danny Ketch comes across as flat, while Johnny Blaze and the supporting cast feel like hollow callbacks rather than fully realized characters. There's a heavy reliance on nostalgia here. The dialogue doesn't help either. It's often clunky, overdramatic, and stuck in that dated early 90s comic tone. Visually, the book has its moments, but even the art can't fully save it. F. Okay, let's go to Transformers: Autocracy. This explores the franchise's origins, always a strong hook, and it focuses on the pre-war era when Optimus was still Orion Pax and Zeta Prime held power. The book shines in its depiction of early Cybertronian politics and the evolving dynamics between the fractions, all of which are handled with confidence. Metroplex's appearance is a highlight, and characters like Hound and Ironhide feel true to their voices, reinforcing how well the material is executed overall. That said, the story doesn't break new ground. It's engaging while you're reading it, but it doesn't linger once you're finished. The artwork is often too murky, and many of the action sequences are too short and underdeveloped. Solid and enjoyable in the moment, but ultimately forgettable. C. Okay, our next story is Hellblazer: Son of Man. And this book arrived after Garth Ennis' initial run on the series, and that timing shows. It has a noticeably different tone and feel. I'm a fan of comics that lean into the uncomfortable and disturbing, and this story delivers on that front. It's easy to see why some readers are put off by it. The book is nasty, but it's also kind of wonderful. The core concept and overall plot are outstanding. An excellent, unsettling idea that commanded my entire attention. There are flaws. The art style veers a bit too cartoony at times, even if it does an effective job portraying the book's most grotesque moments. The narrative also spends surprisingly little time exploring what the demon has been doing on Earth over the years, and the final resolution with the demon itself feels rushed. That said, the central conflict is superbly constructed. The interplay between the police, Chaz, and organized crime is marvelous, making the book an absolute page-turner. A-. Okay, let's talk about Deceased: Unkillables. This is not better than the main Deceased book. It's a decent read, it has no amazing parts, but it is solid throughout. The characters are written fine, there is a lot of heart even though it's forced. There's an even balance between predictable parts, like the villains bonding with the orphans, stupid parts, like the appearance of Captain Marvel, and awesome parts, like the ones that involve Wonder Woman. I don't think any one character shines in this except maybe Deathstroke, but everyone else is just an okay version of themselves. The art, by Carl Mostart, excels in some scenes even though it looks like a weaker imitation of Frank Quietly. C. Okay, it's time to go to Black Panther: Enemy of the State. Much like Deathstroke the Professional, this book suffers from the same persistent flaws. Christopher Priest's humor consistently falls flat, his references feel dated and overused, and the dialogue often veers into outright nonsense. Characters are written in ways that make them seem unintelligent, and the artwork in places is awful, making the reading experience actively painful. The plot is heavily fragmented, jumping around in a way that feels cluttered rather than intentional. There are strong ideas buried beneath the mess, questions of power, perception, and national sovereignty, but they're completely smothered by uneven pacing and incoherent storytelling. What makes Priest's work especially frustrating is that there is clearly something worthwhile here, yet he repeatedly fails to bring it to the surface. One positive: the fight scenes with Kraven are done wonderfully, but this is still an F. Alright, our last book for this episode is Absolute Wonder Woman, The Last Amazon. Taking an iconic character like Wonder Woman and making huge changes to her lore and background and making it work this great is difficult. And writer Kelly Thompson kills it. Every aspect she changes is fantastic, and she makes Wonder Woman more interesting than ever. The additions, such as being a witch raised in hell and her mother being Cersei, are just amazing. The mother-daughter scenes are wonderful, a lot of emotion felt. Thompson really crafted Diana's background well while keeping the character's essence intact. The Steve Trevor angle is also intriguing, and the second story arc involving Hades is equally as good. Kelly Thompson, congrats, you really nailed this book. A-. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode, but I'll be back real soon with another 12 quick random comic book story review.